In this video, I'm going to show how to import scan files from a mass spectrometer and show how to use those scan files to do pressure baseline correction. I assume that you're already familiar with pressure baseline correction. This is something that's often used in clumped isotopes. If you're doing other kinds of data analysis with isotope, then this probably isn't necessary for you, but you can always import scan files anyway. By selecting the Scan File tab in the Input screen, we can see that there's a mass spectrometer already selected, and these are scan files that have already been added for this particular mass spectrometer. I click the Add Scan button, and I'm given an input screen with my username and the mass spectrometer already selected here. And then I can take the scan files from my mass spectrometer and drop them in. Now scan files, one scan file is made for a specific voltage, and it holds all the different cups, data for all the different cups in it. So if you have 6 different masses that you're doing, like we have here, then each file will have 6 curves in it. So here I'm showing a 30 volt file, and I've got the 6 curves. I can also show a 10 volt file, and there's the 6 curves. So these are the contents of the files that I just dragged and dropped. To select a background, though, it's much better if the mass information is all grouped together into a single tab. So Isotope also provides tabs like these. In this case, because we dragged and dropped 5 files, I've got 5 curves in this graph. Each one of these curves is for a file, but it's for the 44 mass. Looking at the 48 mass, when we want to choose our own background, we have to identify an area of this scan file that tells us what the background, what that we believe is the real background value. Isotope allows you to select this by just dragging and dragging across the curve. Now we've created a region in our curve, and this region says we expect our background values to be an average of these values. Isotope then collects all the data points in these regions, averages them together, and then makes a linear regression of those 5 points. This linear regression is then the regression that's used for doing future PBL, pressure baseline corrections. Isotope also allows you to choose another area on the other side of the graph. If you want to use 2 regions, one on each side, Isotope will then average together those 2 regions, all the points in those 2 regions, and make a regression out of that. But that's totally optional. You only need one from one side or the other to do the correction. If you just click on the one side of the graph without dragging, the selected region disappears. If you want to modify a region that already exists, though, you can hold down the Shift key while you grab the edge and then drag it. So this allows you to make minor modifications to a region that you already have selected in your database. In the tabs, you can see that now that we've selected a region, the warning flag is gone here, but there's still warnings in the other flags and the other tabs. The reason for this is that we haven't selected anything in those tabs, and it's only a warning instead of an error because we can still save this file only after modifying one of the fields, one of the tabs. And the reason for this is you may only want to correct one of the masses with pressure baseline correction. You may not want to do all of them. So we didn't force the user to do every single one of them. That just indicates a warning. This needs to be done instead of an error message. Okay, so we're ready to save our data. We just want to correct the 48 mass here, so I click Save. And the data appears in our list. We can reload the data and see all the data is there as we set it up before. And now if we want to retrieve old files that we just dragged and dropped, let's say I want the 25-volt scan file that I gave it before, I can click retrieve and I can save that on my desktop if I want. And now our scan file is ready to be used in the data analysis. If I want to add another scan file, I can click add. And now I'll take the data from May 8th instead of May 7th, drag and drop that. And now we have warnings again in all the tabs because I haven't selected any regions. Now I selected regions on May 7th, and those regions are probably still pretty good. The regions only drift slightly per day. So it would be nice if I could pull back the data from May 7th into this May 8th graph. That's what this button here is for. If I click Load Preceding Background, you see now this tab is no longer a warning. If we click there, we see the same region that we selected in the day before. So this makes adding new scan regions and doing this kind of background correction very easy. We can just drag and drop the files, hit the Load Preceding Background button, and then save. And now the data is available. Today's data is available for future corrections, making scans very, very easy to do.